Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lewis. On this show, we've been through the entire Deep Blue Sea trilogy, scene by scene. Now looking at some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films. That's films featuring aquatic action, sharks, or directed by Rennie Harlin. And this is very much an aquatic action creature feature, as they were talking about Virus. What is Virus? Well, it's a 1999 film starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Sutherland, Billy Baldwin, a bunch of other people that we'll get to. It's an odd one. This one is a alien electric cloud in space that comes down and infests a boat on Earth, and a small haulage crew stumble upon it, try and salvage it because it's a ghost ship at that point, and hilarity ensues with lots of robots and machines and cyborgs and things. And a fun time is had by all. It's directed by John Bruno, who we'll get into. And this is it's a fun one. If you want to watch it, it's on YouTube. So I need a guest to help me talk about this one, because I had never even heard of this film before, let alone seen it. Which is odd, because two different guests wanted to talk about it. But one of them won the coin toss. So returning, she was on before to talk about Cutthroat Island and Sharktopus, two very different films. And now we're adding a third string to her bow. From the Mundane Adventures of a Fangirl. She's got a lot more robotic parts on her face since I last saw her, but I'm going to ignore all of that. It's Jeanette Ward. Jeanette, welcome back to the show.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you back. Yes, but both you and Robert Zerby suggested Virus as something to talk about as being this film. This is like the third. There's a bunch of aquatic 90s horror-esque films that just passed me by. Apparently, like Deep Rising, I'd never come across before we talked about it.
Wow.
The River Wild, I'd never heard of, and that's Robert's going to come back on to talk about the River Wild soon.
And Ghost Ship is the one that yes. I always get Ghost Ship and Virus confused. Deep Rising is in the same, but I never forget Deep Rising because of Treat Williams and that the high action jet ski at the end and the tentacles.
And
but it's a
Cliff Curtis film as well.
Cliff Curtis, so you would think that I would get this and that confused, but this and Ghost Ship, for some reason, the two of those are so linked in my brain, and they're not that similar, but they're also not that dissimilar. So yes,
they have similar starts, similar premises of a crew finds a ghost ship, basically.
Yeah, well, and here's to right off the bat. So you had never heard of this. I know. Nope. So several of us mentioned it to you. So you went into this cold.
Yes, very much so. I
saw this in the theater in 1999. Oh, wow. I definitely saw this movie in the theater.
Any memories from 25 years ago when you saw it?
I remember being kind of scared and kind of grossed out. There are, and credit to the sound effects team on this movie, a lot of what I'm going to call squelchy sounds. Sure. Maybe I could have done without, but boy, there's a lot of squelching. There's a lot of robotic screeches as well when they get that power turned on. The noises that the ship is making are a little bit terrifying. A lot of robot screams. I will say, in revisiting, so I remember it being certainly worth a bucket of popcorn at the theater when I saw it, and then in rewatching it, I was like, you know what, this holds up. This checks out. Everything in here makes sense. It's a tight little action movie, closed space. The plot is easy to follow. The goals are very clear. The cast is certainly very capable, and the practical effects of the robots, great. It checks all the boxes. I mean, what more could you want? Plus, Cliff Curtis.
So much hair.
Before I get too far into this, let me just go off on a Cliff Curtis tangent. Back from Hercules and Xena, I loved this dude. So sexy, so Maori. And then, between this movie and Deep Rising, then he starts to appear in everything else, playing every single other ethnicity. And when in your brain he's this guy, you're like, but he's not any of this other stuff. When is he going to get back to being what he is? And where did all that hair go? The hair is so glorious. So, yes.
He's one of our most discussed actors on this show, I think, because we have Virus, we have Deep Rising, two Meg films, and Avatar: The Way of Water. I think we've got Whale Rider to come at some point, which I've never seen as well. But he's he loves splashing around in the water, and we'll always talk about what he does because he's great.
He's
I love
fantastic.
him to bits.
I tell you, and the Meg 2, because I don't know that you and I have had a chance to discuss it, but my goodness. Cliff Curtis is having such a good time in the Meg 2. If you haven't seen the Meg 2, Cliff Curtis is enjoying the hell out of that movie, so there you go.
Yes, go to the trench. Watch it. Enjoy him to the trench. Yes.
So anyway, also, yes, back to Virus. What I love right off the bat, this movie, it's not burying any secrets. It's not hiding the premise. It's very much like, oh, here's some astronauts and here's a spooky alien cloud.
Yes. So I just on the topic of Cliff Curtis being in aquatic roles, he's playing Poseidon in an upcoming TV series, so called Chaos. He loves the water.
I'm all in for that. And isn't there's a line, I think, as his character is in some danger in this movie where he goes, I can't swim, and I'm like, no, Cliff Curtis, none of us believe that. None of us believe that.
You were born
fine.
of the sea. Yeah. Debbie Mazar is playing Medusa in this show. Okay.
Well, this show sounds fantastic.
So out later this year, Chaos spelled with a K. So I'd never heard of this film. I didn't know what the premise was. I thought going in that it was going to be just like two people is just the show. I think it was going to be like underwater, like trapped in some kind of underwater base where
like the Abyss,
the Abyss or Leviathan or something like that.
Or what was the and I'm so sorry to call her the girl from Twilight. She had a movie.
Underwater. It's called Underwater. Kristen Stewart.
How did I forget it was?
Because it's a very generic name. Underwater, currently our deepest film in the Deep Blue rankings.
Oh, yes, okay.
Entirely set at the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
Yes.
For the entire film. That will not be beaten until a film is set on a different planet that's bigger than ours at the bottom of that. I'm guessing. We haven't done Journey to the Center of the Earth yet, or The Core, but they're both contenders for being deeper, maybe. We'll see.
Possibly deeper, yes.
We'll see.
So you'd never heard of this and you saw it cold.
Yeah, well, I was like, it's going to be like trapped at the bottom of the sea. They encounter something where somebody catches some kind of virus, and so they have a real like tense. Do we go out? There's going to be like people mutating from this sickness kind of thing. I wasn't expecting a cloud of electricity from space that takes over a ship and makes robots that make people into robots. And I loved it so much.
I'm so glad you liked it.
I didn't know where this film was going. I loved everywhere that it went. When Cyborg Donald Sutherland rocks up at the end of the film, like, yes, hell yes. When a guy gets punched, a machine punches a hole through a guy.
Yep.
Like, hell yes, here we go. Every time Donald Sutherland spoke, I was like, where are you from?
Yes! That is my first note.
Are you Irish? Are you Scottish? Are you just from the sea? What is this?
And you know that was his choice. There's no way that was in the script. He showed up and was like, I'm going to do this accent. And the director was like, you don't have to. And he was like, no, I got it.
Yeah, I mean, just looking into the cast reaction to this film, they're generally negative. Jamie Lee Curtis describes this as not the worst film she's ever made, the worst film that's ever been made. Is her reaction to this. She's taken this film to parties where the idea is you bring the worst thing you've been in. So she flaunts how much she hates this film.
She and I have disagreed many a time, so I'm not surprised that we disagree here.
What else have you disagreed on? Tell me. Do you hate yogurt?
No, I do enjoy an Activia yogurt. That is. But when Everything Everywhere All at Once came out, she kind of took it upon herself to start a crusade against Multiverse of Madness, and I'm like, you don't have to hate on other people's movies to try to make your movie look better. Your movie is great. That movie is great. Everybody can see what they want. Calm down.
Yeah. Was she anti-Spider-Verse as well or something?
I don't know. She was just.
I'm
so over the tendency of people trying to poo-poo genre-based films, because they think it, and I'm just over it. It's what it goes back to, the old thing that you're supposed to learn in elementary school. When you point the finger at somebody else, you got 4 fingers pointing back at you.
Yep, agreed.
So.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jamie Lee, whatever, the original Nepo baby, and she's not the original. There were plenty before her,
There were plenty
but
more.
yes,
Like Liza Minnelli might be one before her.
I. But listen, she's great in this. This is, and what I looked up is, I was like, where does this fall compared to True Lies? Because she feels very much like riding on her True Lies success in this, and it's some years after. Like it
True
is
Lies
5 years.
was 96, was it? Or
94,
94,
yeah.
okay.
But this is kind of her playing a similar. And what I like is she's very, listen, I'm the navigator of this boat. I'm going to do what So I think she was great in it. Donald Sutherland was bizarre and wonderful. Definitely understood the assignment. Billy Baldwin, like one of the quality Baldwins.
I'd say a middle Baldwin is what like you have. I mean, there's a spectrum. You have Alec at one end, you have Stephen at the other, and then you just have the other two in the middle. So he's a middle Baldwin.
And I would give Billy the edge over Daniel, and I'm sorry to say that, but I feel like for Backdraft alone, Billy's probably edging out Daniel.
I just I struggle to picture Daniel, but picture's the wrong word because they all look the same. I struggle to remember what Daniel's been in, so I'm gonna have to Google that now.
There you go. That's fine. He's certainly capable in this. Does a good job. Cliff Curtis is, as discussed, wonderful. Joanna Pacula as the Russian who gets left on the ship. Great. It's a good cast. Julio Oscar Machoso, who I always think of from, oh Lord, is it Predator 2? I'm going to have to look it up and check, but he's wonderful. And I remember after seeing this, the way after he's assimilated, and he just walks around going, Steve.
I liked the choice of Billy Baldwin's character being Stevie.
Yeah.
Like, it's not Stevie, it's Stevie. Like,
Stevie.
For a grown adult man to be called Stevie, I think is a choice. And for his buddy to be Squeaky. So it's Squeaky and Stevie.
Stevie and Squeaky. Yeah.
That's a choice. I don't think I've seen anything Daniel Baldwin's been in.
Oh, did
No, I think, I mean, other than he was apparently in 2 episodes of The Sopranos. Other than that, I've seen Born on the 4th of July, but I don't remember his role as vet number 1.
I genuinely could not tell you a Daniel Baldwin vehicle right now.
Yeah, there's not many that I recognize. And like Stephen, I know from Usual Suspects, and then of course Shark in Venice, the classic that we talked about on this show.
Sure, and the TV show Young Riders.
I'll take your word for that. But Shark in Venice is his magnum opus, and if you haven't seen Shark in Venice, you must see Shark in Venice.
I feel like I have. There's no reason I wouldn't have.
I mean, it's a remake of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, with sharks, starring Stephen Baldwin and Scarlett Johansson's sister. So I feel like that should sell that to anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Shark in Venice is such a good film. Such a poorly made good film.
So is this.
Yes, sure. Well, actually, I'm going to say in part this is a very well made film. Especially the effects, the creatures, the puppetry. You've got Phil Tippett doing some work on this one. Well, I mean, so let's roll it back. The director, John Bruno. No, we're not supposed to talk about him, but we're going to talk about Bruno. He's got a VFX background. He's not directed a whole bunch of stuff. He has 5 directing credits, and one of them is for the Terminator 2 Battle Across Time 3D ride at Universal Studios.
Love that. I'm so sad it's not there anymore.
The best thing he's ever done. He did a segment of Heavy Metal in 81. He did 2 episodes of Star Trek Voyager, and he did Deep Sea Challenge 3D, which is one of those James Cameron things. And the reason he did that was because he and James Cameron, best mates. They've worked together on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, Gail Ann Hurd produced this movie.
She did indeed. Back when she was married to the dictator. And
the king of the world?
Sure, indeed. We've talked about, he's our most popular director that we've talked about on the show, and we still have at least 2 aquatic-based James Cameron films to talk about in the future, with both with Heather, I assume. She's our James Cameron correspondent who will return for Titanic and Piranha 2: The Spawning at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, so John Bruno, he did VFX on the likes of Ghostbusters, The Abyss, Terminator 2, Batman Returns, Cliffhanger, Rennie Harlin's Cliffhanger, heard of it? Titanic, he was working on. He actually got poached from Titanic to direct this film. He was making that, and then the studio's like, we need you to direct a film, and he's like, this is my first directing. I have to down tools on Titanic and go and make this instead. He also worked on he worked on the Hercules that wasn't Rennie Harlin's Hercules. The one he did the one with the Rock, the other one.
Oh, sure.
We don't talk about that one.
Well, I did see that one.
I did like Twilight's. He did some Twilights. He did Avatar, Rush Hour, X-Men, AVP.
Oh, I love AVP.
A segment of movie 43. We don't talk about that.
No.
So he's been around directing VFX stuff, and I think that was the right kind of person to have directing this film, because it means you have a real attention paid to VFX.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. And like the puppetry.
Yes.
Which is incredible. I loved it so much. All the little creatures, all the little like the spider robots, and the one that they called one the Goliath because it's huge. Like they're like 9 foot tall one at the end. It's which like those bigger ones, they all had like telemetry, telemetrics, something like that, which was where it was kind of linked up to puppeteers, so when their leg moved, the big creature's leg moves, so you just have somebody walking out of shot. I'd love that kind of stuff. And there's like stop motion involved, like a CGI overlay. It's great.
There are, you can feel some like Terminator pieces to it, the red lights, but I think that just anytime you have a good evil robot, it has to have like red eyes. But the premise, and what I love about this, there's a lot I love about this movie, but it doesn't feel exposition heavy. The exposition that is there is delivered in a way that's believable, like, and it's scary enough in the beginning, but then the action sequences are also great. Like once he picks up and starts moving, because they're all very, and the establishment. I like character development that's not. It's not super heavy. Like, show me in a scene or two and I got it. You know what I mean? Donald Sutherland's character, you get it. Like, all of his money is tied up in the barge. They're sailing in a typhoon. The barge sinks. He's out of money. He's going to kill himself. And then they find an abandoned ship. And he's like, oh, possible dollar signs here. And then you have your ragtag crew that get on board. And they're thinking money because it's abandoned. And we get the sense of dread, and you start to see the little itty-bitty robot creatures around, and then when they find Nadia, the one Russian who's left on the ship, and her explanation of, listen, here's what happened, and you get the varying reactions amongst the crew of like, oh yeah, that's nonsense, and then the Jamie Lee Curtis of like, we should probably pay attention to her, and her explanation of, listen, this thing came down in lightning. It had no form and no body, and now it is trying to give itself what it lacked. That's all you need. That's all you need in terms of understanding the air quotes villain in this movie. It's great. Yeah,
I mean Nadia does give a big exposition dump, which we kind of need because she needs to explain to the characters. But and I did enjoy like the other characters, like mainly Jamie Lee Curtis's character is like, oh yeah, tell us about this. That's all a ploy to keep her busy.
Finish your story.
To like sneak up behind her and grab her.
Yes, yeah.
So that was a nice use of that. Sutherland's character of the captain, he was a little changeable in terms of I couldn't see where he was going towards the end when, full spoilers for this film, when they find the kind of entity that they're talking to, and he just like switches sides. He's like, I'm going to help you. Clearly you've killed this guy I've been working with for 20 years, and you need a head. I'm going to turn around and help you. And I kind of wanted to see the scene where the robot computer talks him into helping them, being, we're going to take your head, and we're going to stick it on this other guy. I want to see exactly how that played out, because he seems okay with it.
He does. He seems perfectly fine when he shows up afterwards. And oh boy, the makeup effects on that, wonderful.
Well, it took Sutherland was in the chair for 6 hours.
Oh, that's too long.
And he agreed to do that once and then never again.
Yes.
So they basically had. If you're wondering why there's not a lot of scenes of the cyborg Sutherland, it's because they only had him for a few hours, and then he refused to ever do it again. And yeah, because there's no CGI in that. That is all prosthetics. That is all just stuff stuck to him, and it looks like a nightmare.
Yeah.
I don't blame him for not wanting to do it more than once. Yeah. I was intrigued by, like, you know, you hear these people like Jim Carrey being in makeup for the Grinch for, like, he has so much money. Why does he need to do that?
Right.
But I'm always intrigued, like, how that would be if I just had. I feel like I should have to do that once. Like, okay, you got to sit in this chair for 4 hours. We're going to stick stuff to you. Then you got to work for like 12 hours, and then at the end of the day, you got to sit back in that chair for 2 hours.
Yeah, 3 hours to get it removed.
I feel like everyone should do that once.
Well, the max I've had a tattoo that took 6.5, nearly 7 hours, and that's, I think, the longest I've ever had to be, and that's with getting up and taking breaks and moving around. But it's not fun. I don't know how. You know, people like Doug Jones, where that's his whole career.
Yeah, I mean, I've fallen asleep having a haircut, so I don't have a lot of hair. I have like a head of hair, but it's not long. I don't have it styled. I'm in that chair for like maybe 10 minutes. I've fallen asleep in that time. I've fallen asleep in an active MRI machine. I guarantee that if I was having to, I would just pass out. I would just like,
well, see,
I don't
then
know.
You'd be fine at this.
Stick things to my face. Just cut out that dialogue. Use that however you want. I don't know. That's just. Yeah. So that's like it does look great, and there will definitely be an image of Cyborg Sutherland in.
Oh yeah.
In the show notes for this.
Yes.
And there'll definitely be an image of the Russian guy that they find who's been cyborged.
Yeah. Nadia's husband.
Yes, when his skull pops out on the claw, that's gonna be. That could just be all the images. Could just be that. I love that so much. Just I wasn't expecting it. It's a scene from The Thing, basically. Yeah. Like, we're like, you gotta be kidding me.
There were a couple of quality jump scares in this.
There's a bird jump scare. They open the door and some birds fly out for no reason.
Yeah. When we stumble across Nadia, she pops out of a closet. That's terrifying.
With a gas mask on, just firing haphazardly at anything. Miraculously misses everyone. It's like Pulp Fiction. She just misses everything and just grabs a power bar. How long has she been in there? The shit's been down for a week. Has she just been in that cupboard for a week?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, because it says 7 days later at the beginning, doesn't it? I like the, cold open of the scary electrical cloud and the astronauts. And again, it establishes Nadia, her character, her husband, very quickly. You get all you need to know about her, that she's playing chess with the people up in the station. And and then you get to the title. Now, and forgive me if this is jumping ahead, how did you feel about the reveal of the title referring to humankind as opposed to the computer virus attacking us? Yeah,
so when we find out that when I discovered this is actually like alien electronics, I thought, it's like a computer virus. This is 1999. This is prime computer virus territory. But then for the computer to turn around and say, no, I'll do the voice. No, humans. I am aware.
That's very good.
You are virus. Where was that noise coming from? What part of the computer was able to make that voice?
Standard computer voice.
Sure. It's kind of a trope at this point, isn't it? Like humans are the bad thing. I want to wish to save the planet, and then all humans get wiped out because we're the main.
Well, we are a plague on this planet. That goes without saying, and I think we're all aware of it. So I enjoyed that twist, because I remember seeing commercials for this, trailers for this before I went to see it, and assuming like, I get it, alien computer virus, great, super, and then the movie is like, no, you were the virus, and you're like, what's that? But it's a trope in that every movie that deals with AI as the villain, I've gotten to the point where I'm tired of big AIs as the villain. Like the most recent Mission Impossible, I immediately checked out as soon as the villain's another AI. Tired of it now. We got it. It's happened. Because the trope is always the AI is too powerful, becomes self-aware, determines humans are the problem, and seeks to wipe us out. Either by coaxing us into war with ourselves or by eliminating us through other means. So, yes, inevitably, when we build an AI that's too powerful and it becomes self-aware, the first thing it's going to decide is like, oh, you know what the problem is? It's all these humans.
Yeah, sure.
So,
I can solve
yeah,
this
I
problem.
mean, while it's a trope, I still appreciated the quick shift in the middle of the movie, like, oh no, you're the virus, in its very scary computer voice.
Yeah, you give it some leniency because this is, 25 years ago, so I don't know how many films prior to this had done. There must have been some. I doubt this is the originator of anything. Yeah. But yeah, but it was less prevalent then than it is now.
Yes.
I was okay with that being. I realized the most recent Mission Impossible. Like it's rare to have a film where like, it's humans are the problem, and the humans are like, yes, but I will motorcycle off a cliff. Aha! Didn't see that coming, did you?
Yeah, in a sequence that didn't have anything to do with it, just had to catch the train. Come on, man.
Right, but I mean, you probably know this, but when they filmed that, they didn't know where he was going to land. They didn't know why he was jumping off a cliff. They just thought of a stunt and did it. That was the first thing they shot from that film was Tom Cruise.
And it's fine. And listen, it was engaging. I was involved. I was like, yay. More Haley Atwell is always going to make me happy. So,
yes, I'm a big fan of her, and I'm a big fan of a climatic sequence that involves the best part of The Lost World, Jurassic Park, like climbing up a thing that's falling off a cliff. Great, more of that. Climbing up through a kitchen. Great, it's on fire. This is perfect. Love that film. I think it's in my top 10 from last year, which is a post I am still writing mid-February.
Yes, I have not even begun that post, which is going to be short because I didn't see much last year.
The problem is the longer I leave it, the more films I see. And so the more I keep getting added. I'm up to like 80 at this point, and I need to stop watching new ones and start writing about the... Anyway, it's irrelevant.
Sorry, it's a sidetrack.
I still haven't finished my best films of 1999 because I keep on watching new films. Like this
is this going to be on your list now? Virus is 99.
I rank every film, so that's my problem. I don't do my top 10 of 2023. I do every film I watched in 2023 and rank them all. Yeah, it's fine. I've done the ranking. I just got to write a little bit and put the images in, and I should have it done by like May. So let's go through the cast a little bit. We'll start with Sutherland. We talked about him a little bit. I love Donald Sutherland in pretty much everything I've seen him in. I find him to be a really interesting actor from his generation, where he often plays psychopaths and just whack jobs. Things like, is it what's the Clint Eastwood film that he did? Is it Kelly's Heroes?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it is. It's going to take a while to scroll back to it because it's like the 70s. He came. He's in Kelly's Heroes, where he plays Sergeant Oddball. And where he's like a hippie with a tank, basically, and he's great in that. But just every time I see him in stuff, he always brings something different, and just makes choices that I don't know where he's going to go. And here that choice was, who knows what accent I'm going to do. And
random accent, indecipherable.
Yeah, ambiguous. Ambiguous origin, and we spoiler, not really a spoiler, behind the curtain when we're recording this. This is coming out a few weeks after our episode on the Hunger Games that Mark and I recorded 2 days ago. So we're recording well out of sync at the moment. But I watched the Hunger Games like straight after this. Actually, after finishing Virus, A Fish Called Wanda was on TV, so I was like, great, Jamie Lee Curtis double bill, perfect. And then the next day, watched the Hunger Games. So this is all just merging together in my head. But he's such a different kind of villain in the Hunger Games films than he is in Virus. And my wife just can't watch him in anything because of the Hunger Games films. She hates him so much. Because of how dastardly a character he is in there.
Fair.
So it's like tainted her view of anything he does ever again.
He's good at playing various levels of villainy. And what I enjoy about him in this movie is that he's already on a death wish, doesn't really care what's happening, only interested in the money. And then when Jamie Lee Curtis punches him, just kind of gives in, is like, you know what, the hell with all these people. I'm just going to sit here and be gleeful as they continue to be eliminated one by one, and then I'm going to side with the machines.
I didn't see that coming, did you? Doesn't work out well for him.
This horrifying smile the whole way through of like,
If you need someone to do a massive grin, Sutherland has the teeth for it.
He does.
and he's not ashamed to sink those teeth into any role, I think. And he's got the teeth, he's got the eyes. He just has a way about him that I think fits every film I've seen him in. I need to. There's some I still haven't seen, like Don't Look Now and Invasion of the Body Snatchers and some of his more well-known films.
Yeah.
So I need to track those down. He's great. So that's him. Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of, she's a little bit hindered by, like, she's the lady. And is often treated as such.
Late 90s action movie pigeonhole as the tough chick.
Yeah. She's like ex-Navy. She's the navigator on the ship, and they talk about, like, she'd be good to have in a tight spot. Oh, it sounds like you think she's attractive. Of course I think she's attractive. Like, it's that kind of stuff. Like,
quality dialogue, yes.
Yeah. But I think she does. She's good in the role. She's always great, I think, in films in generally. She does, towards the end, she does become a little bit more screaming and yelling and not really, like, and needing people to save her.
When she falls into the pit of fuel, which I'm just going to refer to that, there were other things in the fuel, but my goodness, the level of screaming. And listen, I don't blame her. That was scream worthy, but wow, it was a lot of screaming. It was some Kate Capshaw level screaming.
It'd be bad enough if it was just the pit of fuel and also the pit of all of the dead Russians. Like,
Pit of Dead Russians. That's a great name for a thrash metal band.
They don't play well in Moscow. The rest of the world, great, but just not. There's an area where they don't play really well.
It's a band made up of entirely Russian expats. And so
oh, yes, perfect. So they wouldn't want to go back. Who cares how well they play in Moscow? Yeah.
Punk
St. Petersburg?
Russian
Nah, it's not it.
Yeah.
So, I did appreciate, often in these kinds of films you would have the female, the woman, would often tend to look pretty good the whole way through. Towards the end, Jamie Lee Curtis looking quite rough. She's bloodied and beaten and sweaty and horrible. Because she is tortured in this film. She is, after the pit of fuel, she is tortured. And I thought she was going to be turned a little bit part cyborg, and I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't see, like, an antenna sticking out somewhere or something.
I think, and I couldn't remember, as you get to, it's, again, the standard trope of, but you want it in this kind of movie where you have your crew, and then they get picked off one by one, and I couldn't remember if everybody made it or nobody made it. Are we down to one? Are we down to none? Because it starts to look, when you make your way through the story here, that, oh my god, none of these people are going to make it.
The robots are going to win. Which, this has happened before.
Right.
So I think she's good. William Baldwin, we've talked about where he's there.
Capable.
Yeah, he's fine. He's not really standing out.
Look, he's not Alec, but he's not Stephen. He's fine.
Yeah, he's a middle Baldwin. We talked about it. I wasn't overly keen on them, like, hinting at a romantic subplot between Stevie and they say her name was Kit on IMDb. That was not her name. Her name was not Kit.
They call her Foster. They repeatedly just
Kelly. Her name was Kelly Foster. Yeah. It's like, I think. Yeah. Anyway. So they like, when they're talking about what they're going to spend their share of the money on, and Steve's like, I'm going to buy an island. After Cliff Curtis is like, I'm going to build a school to help kids. Steve's like, island, beach, just me. He's like, yeah, you're not. You should see you're not the good guy in this conversation.
Yeah, the hell with them kids.
Yeah, and then Foster's like, sounds nice, and they like have a little moment where they could share the island together.
Yeah,
and then that's it. That's the one hint at relationship until the end, where they're the two that survive.
You're right. Yeah.
Like, I didn't need that.
I am fine with that hint, and I'm glad it didn't go any further. I'll give you that much. Like, it doesn't go any further than that, and I'm good with that. I would have been irritated had there been another level. The strongest romantic relationship is between Nadia and the dead Russian cyborg.
I mean, I was going to say Stevie and Squeaky, personally. I felt like there was a vibe going there that wasn't explored well enough.
Probably, yeah.
Because, like, Squeaky's a fun character. He seems very much like the Scoggins to William Baldwin's Carter. Just kind of tagging along. I'm going to help. I'm helpful. I'm Squeaky. Then he gets turned into a robot. He has the big stupid death of, I hear a noise. I'm going to climb in this vent.
Let me go investigate that noise on this completely abandoned ship where we've already established there are weird robotic pieces. Yeah. What's that? A sound from a dark tunnel? I'll check it out.
I'll be right there. And then, he actually has a death very similar to an early Rennie Harlan film called Prison. Have you seen Prison? With young Viggo Mortensen and Lane Smith?
No.
Prison
I feel like I've seen movies called that, but not that one.
It's such a generic title. But it's, they're reopening this old prison that has a ghost in it that starts killing people.
Oh, hey, great.
It's like, it's Rennie Harlan's audition for Nightmare on Elm Street 4, basically.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's actually quite good.
Oh.
There are some fantastic deaths in it. There's living barbed wire in that film. I think it's barbed wire. It's not really alive, it just kind of gets haunted. But there's a character who is climbing through some vents who gets surrounded by cables and things that strangle him and kill him, and it's the same thing happens here.
It's similar, so, yes.
And the actor who died that way in prison, I'm trying to remember who it was, and I must look it up because I can't get past this.
Well,
he looked like someone, but it wasn't that person.
Yeah, it's the thing of, well, and when they're exploring the ship and they start to realize something is off and everything looks like it's been cut apart, reassembled, rewired, and then unplugged, and then they're like, well, we'll just plug everything back in.
What could go wrong? This is the problem here.
The blood and the bullet holes and all this. Hey, it looks like someone unplugged all of this. Well, let's plug it back in, turn on all the power. Sure,
it's not something that was like easily and accidentally unplugged. No, they removed all four of these hard to remove things.
Yeah.
This is intentional.
Yeah, well, surely plugging them back in will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, people do stupid things. It's why there are films.
People in horror movies have never seen horror movies. Because if they had, there wouldn't be any more horror movies.
They would recognize Foster for being in all those Halloween films.
Right, that's true.
So he dies. Squeaky.
Still going through the cast.
So we have Nadia Joanna Pacula. I think she's good.
I think so.
She gets through the big exhibition dump well enough, and she plays scared pretty well, and she does everything she needs to do.
Scared with a layer of determined. Like, I saw what happened to my crew. I am not going to let this thing off this ship, no matter what it takes. Yeah, I appreciate that. I like that.
And then we have Marshall Bell as Woods,
who I always think of as Starship Troopers guy, despite Total Recall. And I saw Total Recall first, but I always think of him as Total Recall guy, which is crazy. Or as Starship Troopers guy.
I didn't check to see what I knew him from. He's the guy with Quatu.
Verhoeven movie.
Yeah. Okay.
I think he's the guy with Quatu, But in Starship Troopers, he's the guy who was at an abandoned base or a base that lost all of his people. And when they show up to him, he goes, "Thank God for you! Thank God for all of you!" And then he probably gets eliminated by a bug, as everyone should. But it's such a big performance in a very small space that it's easily one of the most memorable pieces of that movie. So, yes, Starship Troopers guy. Sorry, Marshall Bell. That's how I think of you.
Where I know him from more recently, 10 years ago recently, he's in an episode of The Newsroom, which they try and copy like the Fox News style of doing news, and they interview a bunch of right-wing people all at the same time, and he's just like a guy who has to have a gun in shot who they interview, and it's like a terrible episode within the show. Everything goes wrong within and he's just like one of the worst people they could be interviewing. Anyway, that's
he
just
always
where I recognize his face.
Kind of a scumbag, just elevated at the edge of his last nerve, like a scumbag who's out of options. And in this one, like he's aggressively cowardly, and then just takes that to the next level and plays it super big. I'm like, you know what? Own it. I love it.
Yeah, you've got to appreciate the actors who realize that's their lot in life and just make the best of it.
Yes.
Because like Marshall Bell, he has 143 acting credits, and I'm going to guess 138 of them are just assholes. Yes. Just like people you wouldn't want to meet or talk to. He plays the coach in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. To call it back to that.
Of course he's
like, he's Gordy's dad in Stand By Me. That kind of thing. Yeah, I do enjoy an actor who, like, this is what I look like. I'm going to roll with this. I'm okay with this. This is going to put food on the table.
A job is a job.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's like the coward. He leaves Cliff Curtis for dead in the water.
Yes, which is the point of Cliff Curtis. And that's, I think, where the action kicks off is they turn on the power, the ship realizes they're there, or, the entity drops the Russian science vessel anchor through their little tug, destroying it, sending a large splinter of wood through Cliff Curtis's thigh. Mm-hmm. At which point he does I can't swim. And I'm going to choose to assume that he meant he couldn't swim because of the wood in his leg, not because he can't swim. Because obviously Cliff Curtis can swim. We all know.
Absolutely. Look at him.
Yeah.
So I always wonder in those kind of situations, what if the little boat wasn't right below the anchor? What would the ship have done there? Like, it would have a plan, but I wouldn't know what. It's deep blue sea. What if the helicopter winch hadn't jammed and fallen and dropped Jim in the water? What would they have done then instead? We'll never know. They were just lucky, I guess.
That's right. But remember, luck is what happens when opportunity meets preparation. So if you're prepared, as soon as the opportunity happens, you're on top of it.
Yeah, those sharks were prepared, and so was the robot ship.
That's right.
It used the camera to read the captain's name badge and deduce that the ship that was next to them was his. Okay, yep. Sure.
Absolutely.
It makes perfect sense. And that's why we're going to move on. Cliff Curtis is great in this. We keep talking about him. He's perfect. He's great. He has a real death when Jamie Curtis's character gets kind of washed away in the storm. He goes to help her, successfully helps her, then he gets washed away in the storm.
Yes.
God damn it.
Kind of an off-screen death, and you're like, didn't he deserve better than that? But I also don't want to see him mangled by machines. Please don't mangle that beautiful man. Machines. So, all right, fine.
He had the fun little comeback at the end, nightmare sequence. Kind of robot Cliff Curtis, but not really that robot Cliff Curtis.
Right. Do we have time for one more jump scare? We'll throw it in. Okay, good. Credits.
And then we have Sherman Augustus as Richie. Maybe my favorite character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he's just like, you just think, hey, he's just part of the team at the start, and then when they're on the ship, he turns out to be like a real knows his weapons, knows his tech. He was like he has a little bit of personal exposition where he said that he spent 6 years as a Navy weapons specialist, building stuff for the Navy, and so he comes up with a plan of hacking all of the weapons and bombs and stuff together to explode everything at the end. And he goes a little bit psycho.
Yes.
And just kind of a little switch trips inside him.
In a very practical way.
Yeah. And he has a big grin on his face the whole time.
Similar to, and forgive me, but all these movies are tied together. But the character from the Meg, who then returns in Meg 2 and is the one character who, listen, I paid attention in the first movie. I have been doing all this training between the movies, and now we're in Meg 2, and I have this skill, this skill, this skill, this skill, and this skill, and here's my bag full of stuff, because I'm ready for this.
Yeah, it's DJ, Paige Kennedy. It's like, I saw that first film. I should not have survived. So I'm going to make sure I survive the sequel. Which is,
I feel like this character, Sherman Augustus playing Richie, very much had that flip in the middle of this movie where he was like, oh, I see what's happening. I'm going to rely on my training. I'm building a device. I'm getting us out of here. Oh, wait, everybody else is doing other things? Never mind. I'm getting me out of here.
I'm the black guy in this crew. I should already be dead. I need to work. I need to get going.
Think about that. Like, credit to this movie for letting the black guy be not the first one killed and kind of make it almost to the end.
Yeah, he's like the last three, I think. The last four, yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah. This has a real, like, Star Trek bridge quality. Like, we have a black guy, a Maori, a Hispanic, a Baldwin, and a lady. Yeah. Like,
it's a Deep Rising. Deep Rising kind of had that, except they also threw in West Studi. So, they also had indigenous.
Jason Fleming, whatever British guy.
Right. Oh my god, I need to watch that movie again.
It was the first non-Deep Blue Sea film we covered, and I couldn't believe I'd never heard of it.
Oh, it's so good. Stephen Sommers.
Yeah. Man. Like, Deep Rising was so much my jam. Like, that's... I'd love I think Treat Williams was the only cast member who was like, well, who are you? Where have you come from? No disrespect, he just wasn't someone I'd come across before. And everyone else was like, oh, where's Sturdy, Jason Fleming, Famke Janssen? Let's go. Kevin J. O'Connor.
Yes.
Benny.
The Steven Sommers movie. The Steven Sommers movie. Yes. Bigger, better.
Yeah.
God, that movie's
and then we mentioned Julio Oscar Makosa earlier. Squeaky, he's good too. I didn't realize if you click on him on IMDb, he's like from Jurassic Park 3. I was like, who are you in Jurassic Park 3? And he's the guy operating the parasail thing at the start.
Right.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that counts.
That character apparently has a full 2 names. Enrique Cardosa, a name I guarantee neither of which is said in the entirety of Jurassic Park 3. There are times I've seen that film, I should instantly go, oh, it's that guy. But like even
there
now...
are pieces of that movie that I like better than the others, but the majority of it is not.
Yeah, it's my least. There's been a few more Jurassic Parks since then. It's amongst my least favorite of that franchise.
Yes, but it's the one that has the most just dinosaurs running around, which
And it's the shortest, which cannot be overlooked.
There you go.
It is the easiest to just chuck on and watch, and it's the only one with a talking velociraptor.
Listen, I'm not gonna lie to you. I love that.
Alan. I love it and I hate it at the same time.
Yeah.
Which, how I also feel about most of The Lost World. I love that film. It's a bad film, but I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I listened to a podcast on Virus, and they got to the end of it where they were kind of ranking it, and like, I really enjoyed this film. It's a terrible film, but I really enjoyed it. Don't watch it. Like, what do you... You enjoyed it.
I think, like I said, I think this holds up. I think it's worth a rewatch if you've never seen it, because Lord knows it flew under the radar for a lot of people. It's worth checking out if you enjoy a quick, easy, contained. Goals are very clear. It is a bit gory. Like I said, there's a lot of squelchy noises. If you're squeamish at all, they do disassemble humans and reassemble them. And it seems to me, now listen, I don't want to speak for alien viruses. And I'm not, let me go on record, I'm not an alien lightning entity. But it seems really impractical to take a whole human, disassemble it, take other humans, disassemble them, and then piece those together. Why not simply add pieces to one human, do it the Borg way, instead of trying to reassemble multiple humans into single... It just seems impractical. There's a lot of... But due to the nature of what they're doing, it can be very gory. There's a lot of, like, this arm attached to that torso with pieces of that head and a half a face. So if any of that makes you a little bit like, ew, and because it's all practical, it can be very gross. So, but aside from that, man, this movie is fun. Check it out if you haven't seen it.
Also, hear me out. Just use robots.
The robots you were already using, which are very... And Nadia puts it as like, well, first it came over and took over the ship's power. And then it was zipping around between the computers and learning. And then it started building the tiny robots, the gatherers. And they go out and get things. And then it started building larger robots. And then it started collecting humans and incorporating them into the builds. But like you just said, just stick with the tiny robots. Those are the most effective.
Did you ever read Robopocalypse?
No.
Okay, it's World War Z, but with robots, basically.
Okay.
And it's really good. Spielberg was going to make it into a film, but then he didn't. But it's basically robots take over the world. It's told in the whole story of how that would be.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying. Because this actually makes sense. And in that, they keep humans alive, but as slaves, because they need the dexterous fingers to build things, to build more robots.
It is the Matrix, just not batteries. Yeah. Okay, got it.
Yeah, basically. And like that makes sense to me as like why they would need humans. But
sure.
They kind of have a little cop out. When they have the Russian guy, they have him on the table, and then Richie just opens up his skull, as you would do, and finds a little computer in there. Great.
Yeah.
And there's no signs of like degradation or rotting or anything in the skin. Hey, how long does that? It's a week, man. It's not going to be that bad.
Also,
you say you smell
said that, but I was looking at it, and it looks pretty gross, and they mentioned the smell multiple times, so surely some decaying has been happening.
Yeah, because like, they have to explain away why they would use humans. Like, just don't use. I get it. There's the visual. There's the whole Donald Sutherland being a cyborg thing. Great, but in reality, don't just. It's not going to go well to use rotting flesh as
No.
your soldiers. Just.
Well, and they've already, they established communications with it, which, and again, what I like is this crew is fairly intelligent. Like, okay, well, this thing is out here. Let's try talking to it. What does it want? And it very much is like, well, you're the virus. I'm going to eliminate you. And then when they ask, okay, well, what do you want from us? And it starts listing off body parts, which very clever. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. I just want you for spare parts. At that point, you could have had them scary computer voice go, yeah, well, we're going to assimilate the rest of the planet, and we want to be able to blend in. So that's why we want you for spare parts. They don't really clarify that. I'm going to make that leap, but, there's a bit in there where you're like, your robots were working fine. The little spidery robots. You didn't need to get squishy.
And if Cyborg Sutherland is their attempt at blending in, they need to work on that.
Yeah.
They're not there yet.
Fair, that version was better than the Russian captain. I mean,
Sure.
they've improved.
Yep.
So whatever they do next, and Squeaky was pretty good. So
aim for fewer stitches on the face would be my advice.
And use the same head and torso. Stop mismatching. We can tell that's a different person.
Well, I mean, Squeaky is the guy that they put. No, sorry, it wasn't Squeaky. It was Woods. It was Woods' torso, wasn't it? Woods was the guy that they punched a hole through.
Yes.
So I feel like there were elements they couldn't use of him.
Yes.
They had poorly disassembled that course.
And I believe that Phil Tippett is the ILM sound genius, and so all the squelching noises I'm going to credit him with. But yes, punching through a human torso, the sound was. Ugh.
Yeah, Phil Tippett, just a legend.
Because I believe that he's the one who came up with Jabba the Hutt's tongue is the sound of me moving this spoon through this macaroni and cheese casserole. And now, anytime I eat macaroni and cheese, that's all I think about.
Right. That's what I'm going to think about too. Perfect.
See, there you go. You're welcome.
But if anyone out there hasn't watched Phil Tippett's Mad God, do yourself a favour and watch Mad God, and then just disembowel your eyes, because you will have seen things you'll never want to see again, but it's still worth seeing, just for the madness that is that man and his world. Yeah, that's a film. That's a film we could. I mean, it's entirely underground, so we could cover that someday. Then I'd have to watch it again. Oh no. Yeah, it's great. It was my top 10 of that year. Okay, so that's we've been through the whole cast. So you might be surprised to know, but for this film that kind of came out, it cost $75 million to make. It made just over 30 worldwide, so it didn't do very well. It's from 1999, the year that defines cinema in recent decades, basically. Yet no one talks about Virus anymore. This film had action figures.
It was supposed to be released in the last part of '98 and then got dumped January '99. If it had been released in more of a tentpole season, would it have done better?
Maybe. I think they moved it to it wouldn't clash with Halloween, I think.
Yeah.
But it still ended up clashing with Halloween. But no, this film had action figures.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. It is not for kids.
And I think these were they're aimed at adults. So you've got the Jamie Lee Curtis in her red survival suit. There's a Squeaky action figure.
Sure.
There's a cyborg. It's a cyborg Squeaky with little bits of. So it's him in cyborg mode, but you can cover up the cyborg bits, make him human again. And I think there's a Sutherland with the same kind of thing.
I would hope so.
There's a Stevie, and then there's a Goliath who comes with Nadia.
Ooh.
And this stuff is all on eBay. You can buy the Goliath with Nadia for $35.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's still in box. It's mint. I'm not going to buy this. But the box does say "You are Virus, I am aware" on it. So that's nice. But yeah, I was surprised to learn that. Of all the films that have action figures, Virus. Great. Closing that tab. They filmed most of this on an actual boat. So it's nice when that
Nice.
happens, and it adds to the realism. I don't know which boat it was, but it felt realistic in terms of the setting, and that makes sense why, I guess. I don't think they filmed bits of it in a real space station, but they didn't need to do that. That's fine.
This is a little thing, but you know what I enjoyed on the space station? The magnet chessboard on the ceiling.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah. How do we prove these people are Russian? They can play chess. Done.
They can play chess. How do we prove they're in space? Well, their chessboard
Upside down
has to be
chess.
magnetized so the pieces don't float away.
Yeah, that's all. They could speak Russian. Yeah, but how would we know?
There's a line, and I think it's Richie's characters when they encounter, because it's a Russian ship, and they encounter a sign that says something in Russian, and the way he goes, "Hey, can you decipher any of this Cyrillic nonsense?" And the other character goes, "It looks like chicken scratch to me." I'm like, okay, guys. Number one, you're sailors on a boat that's in international waters. I'm sure that you have a base knowledge of, like, if that says danger, I'm sure you can read it.
Or like escape. Or,
Exit.
Basic, yeah. If you don't, then you probably should. But I mean, I liked that Jamie Lee Curtis had like a magic book that had every ship in it as well. Like, what is this ship? Flick.
Yes.
Oh, it's this ship. Okay.
That was
I feel like that needs to
crazy
be a big book, but fine.
Because she can very quickly find the specific ship, and that was weird.
I got quite I got Alien vibes early on in this as well. It did feel very much like it's Alien, but in the water.
Yeah,
So, like,
there was a little bit of that.
A kind of a dead ship, and then you have a Parker and Brett team of Stevie and Squeaky. Yeah.
And there were bits that, like I said, the Borg, and that they're trying to take and assimilate. They're just doing it in a much worse manner.
Yeah. So I liked this film. I think if people are a fan of DPC, they're going to like Virus. There's similar things. But that's all my notes pretty much. Did you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, that's everything that I had. I'm very happy we got a chance to. When I was like, oh boy, that means I have to rewatch it. And then as I was rewatching it, I was like, you know what? This is great. I enjoy it.
Good. I'm glad we agreed on that. Excellent. Okay, well, 2 features left to do. Firstly, how is Virus similar to Deep Blue Sea? I have a list. Released in 1999. Hooray!
Okay.
It's an isolated station overwhelmed by a storm. The drinking during a crisis. It's two guys go down to get the.
We don't really talk about the typhoon. Like, there's a whole typhoon situation.
That's a whole like ticking clock sometimes. Because they're in the eye of the storm, so they've got 2 hours of calm, and they kind of forget about that until the storm comes back and go, yeah, you probably should have been quicker with this.
Right.
But then I guess they hadn't planned on their own boat being destroyed. So, and then the storm effects were pretty great as well when you see lots of shots of the outside of the boat being.
Yeah, I didn't mind any of the giant waves tossing that little model around. I thought it was fine.
And sometimes it was a boat. Yeah. 2 guys go down to get the power going. One of them dies. Is a similarity. I can't read my own. A belt tourniquet and emergency surgery on a limb wound. Scientists at sea. A big exposition dump. Dangerous science kills people. Okay. I don't know what I'm writing sometimes. There is a storm. Turns out every film has a storm. That's the most frequent similarity is. There's a storm coming in.
Yeah.
There's ladder climbing. People getting knocked down by waves. There is a big name death sooner than expected. I thought Sullivan was going to be there till the end. But he's kind of in the Sam Jackson role, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Okay. Finding dead bodies in the water. A big climactic explosion. A rescue helicopter. And birds. There's birds in there.
Yeah. Briefly, but they count.
Briefly, yeah. And finally, how deep and how blue is Virus? So, Jeanette, as I'm sure you know, Deep Blue Sea is, of course, about 14.5 meters deep, 47.5 feet deep on average, 31% blue. Do you think that everything on screen in Virus is, on average, deeper and or bluer than Deep Blue Sea?
It's not deeper because most of it is surface level. I think it might be slightly bluer though, especially because of all the typhoon sequences. Like I was thinking that as I was watching the typhoon sequences, I was like, this is pretty blue right here, this shot. So I'm gonna say not deeper, possibly bluer.
Okay, I'll start with the blue. It is not bluer.
Yeah.
There were some very blue shots, but there weren't many of them, unfortunately. So lots of the robot stuff, like, you had like loads of blue lighting in the back of it. So that was good, and then all the typhoon stuff. But everything else was just not blue at all. So you
A
need
lot
to
of
keep.
gray.
You need more blue. So this worked out being about 10.4% blue on average. So it's bluer than Muppet Treasure Island, less blue than The Legend of Hercules. Just a wonderful sentence. Now depth-wise, this works out of being. Oh God, my spreadsheet. This works out, yeah, as you say, it's mostly up on the surface, so there's practically nothing. I think some of the bits in the big ship are like below sea level because they're like in the bowels of the ship and that. So I did have some bits as being below, which would work out this being about 2.66 meters up in the air on average, which would place this, higher up than Cleaner, less high than, once again, Muppet Treasure Island. However, we are neglecting that bits of this film at the start take place.
Oh, that's right. In space. That'll cancel out some depth.
It absolutely does. So in the past, we've had the ending of Godzilla vs. Biollante. The entire credits for that are in space. So I kind of had to guess the height they were at. I don't need to guess this time because they are communicating with the Mir space station. And I looked
so you know exactly.
Yeah, I do. Because I looked it up. The orbital height of them is. I mean, it's in as like a limit, as a minimum and a maximum. So I just took the average of those two. And the average of those two is 364,000 meters up in the air, which is far. So that's what 226 miles up in the air.
Wow.
So what that means is that this is our highest film we've ever covered.
Oh. Okay. Good.
Because like, even though we're only actually in space for 102 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
That works out as being on average 6,220 meters up in the air.
Oh my.
Which is like 3.86 miles.
Wow.
So it's only like 2 kilometers higher than Godzilla vs. Biollante. But it is the most. It is number 95 on our list of 95 films. It's up there. Whether it will stay there, I don't know. There is at least one film partially set in space that is on the books to cover at some point in the future that I can't tell you what it is yet because it's a surprise. Yeah, this is deep. This is not shallow. Sorry, this is not deep.
It's very shallow. Yeah.
High.
Negative deep.
Yeah, I mean, when we did the Godzilla vs. Biollante, I was like, deep space? When you cross into space, does that become deep again? But that opens up a whole can of worms. So this is up there with, Avatar: The Way of Water has a bunch of space stuff, but not very much, and it's a very long film. So that's counteracted by a lot more stuff taking place down and then further down. But like Congo has some bits up in space as well, with like 5 seconds at a satellite. Yeah, so he didn't do very well on the depth for us. I'm at a depth rating, I'm afraid, Jeanette. Sorry about that. But there's no prize. So,
right.
Deep, less deep than Godzilla vs. Biollante and everything else we covered. Great. That will do it for our coverage of Virus. Did you have anything that you wanted to plug? Where can the listeners find you?
Well, I'm not gonna lie to you. My website has been fallen by the wayside. I don't think I've updated it.
Join us. Welcome to
there's just been life has been lifing, which I'm sure everyone can relate to. There's just so much stuff happening, and admittedly, I have been going to the movies. I just have not been able to make the time to write about going to the movies. And honestly, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like starting, and it's not new, but a lot of last year in particular and moving into this year, it seems like there's been an upswell in the amount of folks online in general being aggressively negative towards everything for the sake of clicks and views. And I kind of feel like that's been turning me off towards being online in general and writing reviews alongside it. And I'm trying to get past that. And every time I think I'm over it, I see something else where I'm just like, no, the hell with this. So I have been going to the theater and I've been enjoying all it. I tell you what, I went to see Anyone But You last week. The the Glenn Powell rom-com.
Sure.
And my goodness, what a delight. If you haven't seen that, go see it. Hey, it's Much Ado About Nothing. Or it's a Much Ado About Nothing takeoff in the same way that 10 Things I Hate About You was Taming of the Shrew. It's a delightful movie. I recommend it highly. There you go. I haven't written about it, but...
I've only heard good things, but I am waiting for that to hit streaming, just because...
Sure. Fair. Absolutely fair. You don't need to see it in the theater.
And I had a membership to go to the cinema, where I would pay like £100 for the year and go and see as much as I wanted, which sounds like a great deal, but then it turned out I didn't have time to go that much. And then when I did have time, I would go and see films that I kind of wouldn't have gone to see if I'd had to pay for them. It just kind of felt like I was wasting my time. I wouldn't have gone to see 65 if I had to pay.
Yeah, that felt like a waste to me. I was disappointed.
65 was disappointing. Yes,
I was really disappointed.
There are so many cool dinosaurs. Why do they pick all the boring ones?
Well, and also the ones that they picked, I'm like, I disagree with this depiction of what you claim this is.
Yes, be more fun.
Yeah,
dinosaurs shouldn't be boring, as a rule. Anyway, so I've kind of not got a membership for the first time in years, and I don't know when I'm going to go to the cinema next, because I'm looking at the schedule. There's not that much coming up this year that I'm looking forward to, and all of the Rainy Harlem films look like going straight to streaming. So speaking of which, The Bricklayer hit streaming today.
That's right.
In the UK.
Yeah.
So I'll be watching that this weekend, and we will have hopefully covered that last week on this show because time travel. Yeah, but so I don't blame you for not writing up stuff, because I'm terrible at doing that myself. But if you want to read some writing that I have done, then lifeversusfilm.com is where you can find some stuff, I guess. And at Deep Blue Sea Pod is where you can follow this podcast on all over social media, and email us deepblueseapod@gmail.com if you have any other 90s aquatic horror films that I've never heard of that you want to come and recommend, then please let me know. Or other decades as well, also counts. Next week should be more Donald Sutherland, as we've looked about Hunger Games Catching Fire, the deep blue scenes of that one, and that's the one that has all of the water stuff in it, so that's the one we're going to talk about the most.
Got it. I was a little perplexed as to why that was being covered.
Well, we did the water scenes in the Jurassic franchise.
Okay.
And we thought, let's do another franchise, and Mark worked on the Hunger Games films.
Nice.
So it felt like easy ones to record that would require minimal prep, because he's already been on the set. And we've seen the films a bunch of times, and we like them.
Yeah.
He likes them. I like the second one, which is the one we're going to talk about next week. But as for Virus, thank you once again to my guest, Jeanette Ward.
What a delight. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I have been Jake Lewis, and I'll Deep Blue see you next week.